Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Courageous Conversations, Black in the C-Suite. My name is Kimberly Edelin. I am a second-year psychology major
Recording in
with
progress.
a concentration on mental health and a Baldwin Richardson Foods scholar at Spelman College. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of welcoming you all to today's Courageous Conversation, an opportunity to engage with and learn from Black women in leadership. It is vital that Spelman students see and hear firsthand from Black women who are dominating in their industry as we navigate our own career paths. I am immensely grateful to Spelman College President, Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell, for giving us the opportunity to hear these stories of success and lessons learned. Additionally, I would like to thank the amazing women speaking with Dr. Campbell today. They are sisters, best friends, Spelman alumna, coworkers, mentors, sponsors, and philanthropists. Erin Johnson Tolefree is president of Baldwin Richardson Foods, and Cara Johnson Hughes is vice president of customer and community of Baldwin Richardson Foods. On behalf of Spelman students and my fellow Baldwin Richardson Foods scholars, Ms. Tolefree and Ms. Hughes, thank you for being courageous and taking risks through every endeavor. Because of your strides and investments, Black young women like me and future entrepreneurs are inspired and motivated to take fearless leaps. You are paying it forward, changing lives and showing that what we might see as impossible is indeed possible. Now, please join me in a virtual applause to welcome Spelman College President Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell and two of my favorite people, Ms. Erin Johnson Tolefree and Ms. Cara Johnson Hughes.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Kimberly, and congratulations on being a Baldwin Richardson Foods scholar. You are not only an outstanding scholar, but you're also an activist doing very important work on voting rights. I wish you all the best in your career here at Spelman College. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and happy Founders Day today. April 11th, 141 years ago, Sophia B. Packard and Harriet E. Giles opened up the first class of the Atlanta Baptist Female Seminary in the basement of Friendship Baptist Church. And on that day, 10 women and one girl, a total of 11 students, came and became the seed that became the mighty tree that we call Spelman College. We are so delighted to have the last edition of the academic year of Courageous Conversation today on the very day of our founding. And I'm so delighted to be able to welcome alumni Erin Tolefree, class of 2001, Cara Johnson Hughes, class of 2003. And if you'll notice, we're all wearing our Spelman white attire in honor of Founders Day. Now, before I engage our guests in conversation, first let me ask, how is everybody doing? And I ask that question because I am so happy to be here because I am recovering from COVID. So it is truly wonderful to be here with you. So put in the chat and let me know how you're doing today. So now I am pleased to welcome to Courageous Conversations, Erin Johnson Tolefree, President of Baldwin Richardson Foods, and Cara Johnson Hughes, Vice President of Customer and Community of Baldwin Richardson Foods. Now, Baldwin Richardson is a global manufacturer of custom ingredients for the food and beverage industry. And before these two talented C-suite executives came to their positions, I am pleased to say that they shared on this Founders Day, we remind ourselves that both studied, created memories, and found lifelong friends at Spelman College. As Kimberly mentioned, they are alumni, sisters, best friends, and co-workers. But they are also third-generation entrepreneurs carrying on the Johnson Hair Products legacy of their grandparents by way of Baldwin Richardson Foods. As president of Baldwin Richardson Foods, Erin oversees the finances, operation, quality, human resources, and supply chain teams. As vice president, Cara oversees sales, marketing, customer services, innovation, and culinary. She also manages Baldwin Richardson Foods community and philanthropic efforts and serves on the Spelman College Board of Trustees. She and Erin believe it is imperative to give back to Spelman because it has given them so much. The family established an endowed scholarship on behalf of Baldwin Richardson Foods, which provides first-year recipients with full tuition for their 4-year matriculation at Spelman College. Erin and Cara, we are thrilled that you are here with us for Spelman's Courageous Conversations, a series designed to share what it's really like to be a woman and to be Black in the C-suite. Now, I remind the audience that you can ask questions throughout this conversation. Please type them into the chat and they will be delivered to me. And as they come to me, I will weave them into our conversation so that we can all engage in this conversation with these two phenomenal Spelman sisters. Now, we always like to begin by asking our guests about their early years. So, you are third-generation entrepreneurs. Your grandparents were George and Joan Johnson, and they broke barriers in the beauty and hair care industry during the 1950s and the 1960s. What did their legacy teach you? Erin, let's start with you.
So their legacy, go ahead, Cara.
Actually, I'll get started. I'm having a bit of technical difficulties, but hopefully you can hear me. Is that right?
We can hear you perfectly.
All right, so we'll figure out the camera in a moment. But before I get started, first and foremost, Dr. Campbell, Erin and I are so honored. Hang on, I might have.
We can, okay.
Excellent. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
You have to unmute.
Boy, if we are not more than, 2 years into COVID and still having technical difficulties, but we'll get started. So Dr. Campbell, first and foremost, thank you so much. Erin and I are so honored to be a part of Courageous Conversations. This platform is informational, it's motivational, and it's inspirational. And when we look at previous guests, we are instantly humbled to be a part of the group. We are even more excited that this is your final Courageous Conversations as president of Spelman College. And the fact that it's our Founders Day makes this even more special. It is so nice to come home and to be able to tell our story. And so to all our Spelmanites, happy Founders Day. I am sure the chat function is just blowing up with just beaming with pride. Happy Founders Day. And to Kimberly, thank you so much for the warm introduction. You know that we like to say what we do well allows us to do good. And you, along with our soon to be 5 Baldwin Richardson Foods scholars, make us immensely proud. You all are why, Erin and I continue to live our family legacy of giving back to our community. We know that our scholars are leaders and that you all are going to make a choice to change the world. And then to Erin, I know we're not together physically in the same room. I am too quarantining, but if we were together that we will have given each other a fist bump. So there you go. And to Dr. Campbell, back to your question, Erin and I have been, really so blessed, right, to have grown up around, business leaders all our life. And with that, we've seen that hustle, we've seen that grit, we've seen struggles, and we've seen the triumphs of owning your own business. And today we are so proud to represent the 3rd generation of entrepreneurs in our family. And as you mentioned, our grandparents, Joan and George Johnson, they were visionaries. They were visionaries with a dream of providing the best family that they could, the best life for their family that they could. And in 1954, our grandparents did start their own hair care business called Johnson Products Hair Care Company. And I love to tell the story. My grandfather, again, was a visionary, had this dream. My grandmother wanted to see them scale. So he went to a bank and he shared his vision with a loan officer, and he asked for a loan of $250 to start his dream. And so the loan officer at the time looked at him and said, "Son, I am not going to grant you this loan because," can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We're on the edge of our seats. Oops, now she's frozen.
I could certainly pick up that story for her. So he went in to get the loan, and the loan officer actually denied him on the spot, and then told him that he was actually doing him a favor and that he would allow him to go back to his job. Cara, you want to pick back up?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll finish the story and then I'm going to switch to my iPad because this is unstable. So anyhow, I was at the loan officer. Is that the last thing you heard?
Yep.
Okay, so the loan officer looked at him and said, "Son, I want you to keep your job, so I'm not going to grant you this $250 loan." And so while he was, really deflated, he wasn't defeated. And so he went home. He shared this story with our grandmother, who of course was a strong Black woman, who said, "You know what, you're going to go out there and we're going to still scale this business. So go get that loan." And so he went to the same bank, but a different branch. And the next day he says, "I'd like to borrow $250 to take my family on a vacation to California." And he was granted the loan on the spot. So, really fast forward to today, access to capital for small Black businesses is still a problem. However, even though, Johnson Products was started out somewhat on a fib, it ultimately was the first African-American business to ever be publicly traded on the American Stock Exchange. Wow. And of course was well known for brands like Ultra Sheen, Afro Sheen, Gentle Treatment, and beyond. But beyond the products, right? It was a beacon of prosperity. It was and is still today a sense of pride in the Black community, and it created such economic impact. Like really no other in the African Americans in the city of Chicago, but quite frankly, around the world. And our grandparents really took pride in knowing that they were creating jobs and economic mobility for people who look like them. And as a result, really return their profits to the community through scholarships or otherwise. They were always socially conscious and supportive of the civil rights. Our grandparents were early supporters of Dr. King through Operation Breadbasket and many other ways. My favorite story that my grandparents tell is the one where Dr. King, came to Johnson Products during a town hall or all hands meeting, and he looked out into the sea of Black and brown employees and saw these faces that looked like him. And he said, "No, now this is Black power."
Yes.
And I love hearing that story. I love hearing my grandparents tell Erin and I's children that story because that is so powerful. Our grandparents were really our first template of what entrepreneurship was, and truly what Black excellence was. And they showed us that hard work, leading with your values, they showed us what that really looked like. And it taught us to aim high without worrying about any limitations that other people might try and put on us.
I think that is such a wonderful story, Cara, and an important reminder that entrepreneurship is really part of the social justice agenda, right? It's an important part. It's, in fact, maybe the cornerstone of the social justice agenda, and as much a part of Dr. King's vision of this country as voting rights were. So thank you for that story. Erin, I'm going to turn to you now. So how did you first learn about Spelman College?
Oh my goodness. So I'll start with 3 words: Joan Betty Johnson. So Cara just shared with you what a barrier breaker and strong Black woman my grandmother was. And candidly, when I started to think about going to college, I was very much a homebody. And so my sights were on Midwestern schools that felt familiar. And as much of a tough cookie as our grandmother was, she would never presume to make decisions for us. But she knew from probably the moment that I was born, and certainly through her 2 terms as a trustee with the college under Dr. Stewart and Dr. Cole, that it was the only place for her granddaughters to attend. So the way that she got me into Spelman, or got me onto the desire to go to Spelman as my only choice, is she asked me to attend her final board meeting in Atlanta, the summer of 1996. And she didn't really tell me a whole lot about the trip, but we got to Atlanta. She bought me a suit. We checked into the hotel and she gave me an itinerary, and then she left. And so she sent me on a tour of the city. She sent me on a tour of the campus. And truly, from the moment I stepped on to Spelman College's campus, I knew that I was home. I knew that there was no other option. And, you know, that night we were able to close. It was actually her final board meeting with a dinner with Dr. Janetta Cole in her final year, as we were transitioning to Dr. Manley as I came on board. And just being able to experience the energy, the beauty of what I saw on campus that day, and then to seal it off with a dinner with Joan Betty Johnson and Dr. Cole, I came home waiting. It was a countdown until I could get to the start of my first semester. So I have to give her a lot of credit for seeing things in Cara and I that we didn't necessarily see in ourselves. We didn't grow up in a family of people who went to HBCUs, but she found the way to get us down the path to find our home at Spelman. And we're so grateful that she did, because we can look back on every major milestone in our lives since then and see the connections that they have to Spelman, whether it's the network. I didn't know this at the time, but my husband, Truman Tolefree, was a graduate of Morehouse, met him while I was there. Took a little while for that to come back together, but yeah, Spelman is just a part of everything great in our lives.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. So Cara, I guess with your sister at Spelman, it was an easy decision for you?
Yeah, I mean, are we good on voice?
Yes.
All right. Technical difficulties. So naturally, I'd been to Spelman. I mean, who didn't know about Spelman, right? We're #1 HBCU for so long. My grandmother didn't go to Spelman, but obviously loved it. We went to see Erin, drop her off. And then, so for me, I actually thought, because I was, really with Erin for so long of my life, that I wanted to do something different. So I actually thought I was following my friends to Boulder, Colorado. What was that?
She thought she wanted to get away.
Just for a little bit. No, I thought I wanted to do something different. I thought I wanted to go to Boulder, Colorado, to follow my friends. And that's definitely not an HBCU. I definitely would have been on the margins. And my grandmother knew better than I did. And she said, you know what, you need that HBCU experience. So she made me promise to go to Spelman for at least 1 year. And so, of course, I went, loved it, have friends all over the world. But I was truly transformed because of this.
Oh, we are freezing again. I am sorry to see. So while we're waiting for Cara to unfreeze, I'm going to ask a question related to Spelman, and that is, when the two of you attended Spelman, although we had an economics department, we didn't have an entrepreneurship program. We now have we just established a Center for Black Entrepreneurship, as you know, and we have enormous interest in entrepreneurship. But yet, it's clear that Spelman College had an impact on you as young developing entrepreneurs. Erin, can you talk a little bit about the influence that Spelman had on you personally and professionally?
So I think coming into Spelman, the uniqueness of the experience is that you're surrounded by amazing women of all different walks of life. So if I think about my fellow classmates, they were coming from all over the United States and many places around the globe. And before they got to Spelman, many of them had accomplished and broke through so many barriers just to get there. And so that was always inspiring in terms of, your belief in what's possible and what can happen. I found as a student, and this is very different from what I would say many of my non-Spelman sisters experienced in their college trajectories, is that, we were in classes where our professors actually cared. They knew who we were, they knew our names, they knew our strengths, our weaknesses, the things that they could do to really nudge us in the right direction, pushed us to take risks. Throughout the campus, there were any number of activities and things that we could get into that allowed us to feel that we could make change and actually see what was happening. And then when I think about just the number of people that came during my 4 years to the college to share their knowledge and wisdom. I remember my senior year thesis was really on breaking the glass ceiling. And what I have to say is that leaving Spelman College and showing up in an industry where, yes, I was an economics major. I had grown up in a hair care business that transitioned into a food business. I didn't know much about it, but what I did know and what I gained from Spelman is this belief that I could do anything that I wanted to. I had a network that was in sisterhood that was behind me. And I would say that that's as much an entrepreneurial foundation as any formal program would ever bring.
Oh, that sounds great. Cara, welcome back. So I asked the question, what was the impact of Spelman on you personally and professionally?
Yeah, thank you. I had to switch to iPad, so hopefully this is a little bit better. But I think what I was saying before I left was that I was transformed because of the Spelman experience. Spelman being a liberal arts college, it gives a woman such a well-rounded education. It teaches you really how to think and how to really navigate through tough situations, being away for the first time, the sisterhood that you have. What I took away was this notion of being a lifelong learner and being an innovator and having intellectual curiosity, being prepared. Those are all things that I feel like, again, that girl who showed up kind of left with this package of goods as I graduated. And also, just having a network of women who were all doing amazing things, who were surrounding and uplifting each other while at Spelman. Also, just being able to continue to tap into that network and learning and really continuing to learn and grow from the sisterhood and the network. I hope that my daughters, get this experience one day. The care of the amazing faculty, that's really what carried me through. But it also just felt really good to be around women who were all after the same goal and came from so many different backgrounds and, really supporting each other and helping each other kind of get what we all wanted out of the Spelman experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. And I just wish that for my 2 young girls.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, both of you.
I'd say this summer, I was able to take my daughter to the Smithsonian African American History Museum. And when we got to the HBCU exhibit, and I actually had to print it out this morning because I wanted to share this, I think it's a perfect example of exactly what Spelman gave us. And it was a quote from Mo Ivory, one of our Spelman sisters, as well as our sorors. And she said that Spelman College taught me the meaning of womanhood and my place as a Black woman in this world. I graduated with a degree in confidence, self-esteem, perseverance, and determination. Those are all the critical hallmarks of what it takes to launch yourself as an entrepreneur. And Spelman gave that to us.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, you both told this wonderful story about the founding of Johnson Hair Products. Let's hear about how Baldwin Richardson Foods came about, right? Because that's also a family business as well. So who would like to tell that story?
So I'll start, and it's funny because it goes back to Spelman College being connected to all the major life milestones. So Eric Johnson, our father and our CEO, rose up to become the CEO of Johnson Products. And you can hear him describe it in many different forums, but he had this really deep feeling within his soul that this wasn't it. And he had reached what he thought was his life goal, which was to become the CEO of Johnson Products, and felt that he was inherently supposed to do something different. So in 1992, he left Johnson Products and he bought Baldwin Ice Cream Company, which was one of the longest traditionally African-American owned food companies in the United States. And when he bought Baldwin Ice Cream, he always believed that it was the beginning of what would someday become Baldwin Foods, a much larger player in the food industry. So in August of 1997, he dropped me off. He drove me down to Atlanta and moved me into my dorm at LLC 1 and rushed to the airport. He went to Rochester, New York to just check on a company called Richardson Foods that he was interested in buying. And he came back about a week later to pick up his car and head back to work because he had to leave it at campus. And by my first winter break at Spelman College, December 31st, 1996, I brought sparkling cider to the office at 8 p.m. and we closed on what would become Baldwin Richardson Foods.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really exciting and very brave and courageous on the part of your father, right?
Absolutely. And that was a very hallmark moment in our life, because all we knew growing up was Johnson Products. We came to Spelman knowing that we wanted to be in business.
Mm-hmm.
We came to school knowing that we had great mentors. Spelman really helped us to create and come into our own and start to forge our own path.
So when each of you graduated from Spelman College, you went to work in this new business. It was new, right? Relatively new, Baldwin Richardson Foods. So what were some of the experiences you had entering into as new entrepreneurs? Either one, either Cara or Erin.
So we actually have different paths. So I'll pass it on to Cara in a moment, but mine was a little bit unexpected. It all came on my graduation evening. I was sitting with Eric, my father, consulting with him as I did at that point in my life on all important things, and helping to get his guidance, or seeking to get his guidance on two different offers that I had received. And they were very different in which one I should pursue. And he gave me very candid feedback on both. And just as I thought I was going to turn and leave that conversation and make a decision, he said, "Hey, well, what if I put a third offer on the table?" on my graduation evening. And, we sat there and we negotiated that, I would start the very next week. And I absolutely did. I left my things in Atlanta and got to work. And if it was something that was mutually beneficial, then it would be long-term. And if not, the job offers I had coming out of Spelman didn't start until August, and we would consider it an internship where I gained a lot of skills and experience heading off into the new world. He made a commitment to me, and I have to give our father, a lot of credit. He's not just our CEO, but he's a father of 3 women. He raised us all to be tough and confident and to do all the things we want to do in the world, similar to our Spelman experience. But he committed to me that evening that if I took a chance on him, that he would take a chance on me and this would be mutually rewarding and he would support me along the way. And I have to say there isn't a day that he's fallen short of that since the beginning.
What was that first job like?
It was something that made me reflect on what I might have done differently if I could have looked at the last 4 years at Spelman. Instead of maybe taking those interdisciplinary science courses that I took, I might have taken a bigger interest in chemistry and other things that would have better prepared me for the food industry. But that piece came along fairly quickly. I think we picked up some values that Cara and I actually use every day in our relationship now, which is, quick, honest, open feedback. We all have the same vision. We want the same thing. So we've got to, be each other's partners and allies and making sure that, we're set up for success. And that has helped us to grow the business from when we bought it in 1997, about 79 employees, and we were producing about 38 million pounds of food on an annual basis. This year, on our 25th anniversary, we have over 400 employees and are approaching 400 million pounds of food. So I would say that partnership we cemented on day one and that Cara and I have had over the last 21 years of working together has truly been remarkable and one that we can look back and say the journey has been very rewarding and we're just getting started.
And so, Cara, what was your first experience at Baldwin Richardson Foods?
So before I got to Baldwin, I actually went to the finance industry. So I left Spelman and I knew that there were a couple of things that I wanted to do. Number one, be managed by a non-family member, so that I knew what it was like to get feedback from and just, grow in my own career. And then the second piece of that I wanted to get out of working at Northern Trust Company was how do businesses utilize banks to their advantage? And so I went to Northern Trust. I was in trust and investments. I was in a lot of different areas because I was in a growth track for development. And I knew that I had gotten enough. It was right around the point where banks were just being consolidated right before 2008, actually 5. And then we had just acquired a division of Smucker's. And so while I was looking at getting out of banking, it was a perfect time because we were actually my father was actually just integrating a business and looking for sales managers. So I made the decision to leave the finance industry and come into the food industry and was basically in charge of onboarding all of our new business and our customer relationships and in a space where our customers were looking at us and saying, I don't want you to have this business for whatever reason. And this was in 2005. So those notions still are out there. But we have, onboarded those customers and made them true believers. And I've been on the customer side and so happy that I made that decision to come into the business because there is nothing like growing and expanding and creating new chapters of your own business with your family members. And so even though Erin, I wasn't trying to get away, it's life-changing. And when you really think about, looking at our children, Erin and I talk every morning going to work. We talk several times throughout the day. We talk on our way home. And as we look at our children who, imitate us, right? They walk around and they're on the phone and they're saying, hey, Erin, hey, Cara, did those raw materials get here today? What does our forecast look like for the next month? When are we going to actually onboard this new customer? This is the second generation, or actually the next generation in progress.
Right. So they're already in training, even, just
already
by watching you work every day, right?
Yep.
So now you're executives, you're in the C-suite, and we know that it is a challenge for women all over this country to be in the C-suite, and a particular challenge for Black women. So what has your experience been? I'll start with you, Erin, and then go to Cara.
So I would say early on and still, unfortunately today, is a long story of onlys. Only Black person in the room, very early on in my career, the youngest in many cases, not so much anymore, and the only female. I think our Spelman experience really trained us and prepared us to at least walk into that room believing that we had a seat at the table. And that's, I think something that we can't count the value of. I think our goal and our objective is to make sure that when we do walk in those rooms and we find out that we see that we're the onlys, is one, always be prepared, but two, really hold the responsibility to make sure that we are paving the way and making a seat for someone else at the table. That's something that we hold pretty near and dear to our work and our hearts every day. It's represented in our own organization, and we really strive to make sure that, we are paying it forward by creating more seats at the table. And that's why we're so excited, even with today, the kickoff with Kimberly. We believe that the investment in the Baldwin Richardson Foods scholars is hopefully paying it forward in whatever way, whether our scholars decide to go into business or they go into the medical field and create things that ultimately create jobs. Our motivation is really to make sure that this next generation of women that's coming up isn't finding themselves at these tables being the only.
That's a wonderfully generous vision. Before I turn to you, Cara, let me remind the audience to please put your questions into the chat, and we will make sure that they are delivered to me so we can include them, your questions, into our conversation. So Cara, how about you? How does it feel to be a C-suite executive?
Yeah, so, I think back to my grandmother, and she was a businesswoman in the 50s and 60s. And she truly, outside of Johnson Products, was the only Black woman at the table. And as we fast forward, Erin mentioned this a bit, but we see a few more. And so I want to commend, this falling at the heels of corporate America to try and make progress in this area. But we're not all the way to bright. There's so much more room. And so I often think about, what is it that Erin and I can do? What do we do? So our obligation as a business really is to, hire the best talent and surround ourselves with the best talent. What we try to do is make sure that that best talent looks like us. And so that they're contributing to at the highest level, but that we're contributing to those numbers. But then I switched to sort of our philanthropic work, right? We focus on creating opportunity through scholarships, whether it's through Babson College or Spelman College. And we look at that as a pipeline for that next generation of leaders. Last year, Erin mentioned it, but we had one of our first graduates from Babson College. He was a Baldwin Richardson Foods scholar, and he's actually now in a rotational training program with us. So he wants to be in marketing. We said, oh, that's fine. You can be in marketing, but we're going to give you a well-rounded experience. So he started in marketing, but then he's in sales rotation right now. He's going to, ultimately go to Macedon, which is where our manufacturing sites are, and get a finance operations. And then he will be able to decide. But that's the full picture, right? Our efforts and our scholars ultimately coming back and creating opportunity, and then ultimately giving back and working with us. So that's impact, and that's what we like to see. And so being in the C-suite, those are the decisions that we get to make on behalf of our own business, right? To be able to make those stories reality. And so I just look forward to our Spelman students ultimately coming back and creating that same experience.
That's such a thrilling thought that you're looking at Baldwin Richardson, obviously to be a successful business, but also a training ground for the development of for spotting and developing new talent. That is so exciting. And it's one of the benefits of entrepreneurship, right? Yeah. So that is really extraordinary. So you're two sisters and you work together. How's that work out? Either one of you.
I guess I'll start that one. So Cara and I are sisters. We are very, very different. And that is, I think, something that works with great power for the two of us. And I would have to include our father in that as well, even as we're transitioning into the leadership of the business in its next chapter, we all have the same vision. We want to run a great business, and we want to use the good things that we do to be able to make an impact in the world. And so no matter what those differences may be, when we're all united by a common vision, Cara and I every day, those strengths and differences bring great perspective that helps us come up with the best ideas. So I personally love working with my sister. I get to, build great things and make good progress in our organization, in our community, in the world, and for our families with my favorite business partner, and to be able to call her my sister as well. Is just an honor and a privilege that, we hold near and dear. It's a relationship that we know is special and unique. And so we protect it with everything we have.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is truly wonderful. Cara?
Yeah, look, we're a family business. So some days we have amazing days. Sometimes we have not so amazing days. Sometimes it's really hard to hear the feedback that we really want or that you really need, but you don't really want. And then sometimes, it's wonderful to see that feedback, like actually working on it and actually seeing you make progress. So, look, I know at the end of the day, my family has the best interest of me, and then that's in return. So we like to say 1 + 1 = 4, 7 million. And what happens is us together create something much more, than we could have ever imagined. I was trying to think about how many sisters, Erin really is to me. So she's my blood sister. She's my Spelman sister. She's my Delta sister. She's my line sister. So shout out to Eta Kappa. She's my sister in life and in business, and my favorite business partner and sister. So we've been together, obviously all our lives, and then working together. It is something that I cherish. I look back to, I've been in the birth rooms. We've been in the rooms for all the birth of our children. And then we've been in the boardroom at the birth of all of our largest decisions.
Right.
And so that you just can't replace it. I'm just so grateful that our husbands know, and our kids and our family understand that connection and that bond that we have, and allow us the space to continue to, have these conversations on a routine basis with each other. But we also find time to just have fun, and take family vacations together, and we still enjoy that. And so I just look forward to the next generation that comes behind us. And I just hope that we are, as patient as our father, really was with us growing up through this business, so that Erin and I can be that for our children.
So we have some questions coming in. So I want to have some time for us to capture some of those questions, actually several that are now coming in. So I'm going to start. What is the secret strategy of onboarding reluctant clients? I thought that was a tantalizing tidbit that got thrown out. Can you give us some insights into that? I think that was a really important business question.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, our strategy is just to focus on excellence. We make sure that we are, 10 times better than our competitors in every aspect of this. So making sure that we have the highest quality, we have the best ingredients, we have the best people, right? Being able to bring in the best people and the talent, so that we're not, a problem. We're problem solvers, for our customers. And so through times and just showing that excellence, our customers ultimately have come back and have not just awarded us, but rewarded us for our excellence. And ultimately, we are one of the leading food manufacturers and liquid product space in the US.
Wow, that's really impressive. We have a question from Carmen Harris, your fellow Spelman College trustee. And she says, you have a legacy of courageous decision-making. What are some recent business courageous decisions you made? And what were some of your key reflections that helped you make them? What a wonderful question.
Yeah.
Courageous business decisions. Erin, do you want to?
I was going to say, I think the last couple of years are just full and rich of very courageous business decisions. You know, I think back to March 16th of 2020, when, you know, things really started to shut down and we had to make some very quick decisions because, of course, we worked in the food industry and we are a supplier to some of the most iconic brands in the globe. And we had to think very quickly around how we were going to continue to satisfy our customers, you know, continue to deliver that same performance that has helped Baldwin Richardson Foods grow while protecting our people. And quickly that got defined in many different ways. You know, part of it was sure get PPE, you know, masks and things like that to protect them. But we wanted to be a place where people, despite everything that was going on in the world, knew that they were going to have work at Baldwin Richardson Foods. It might look a little bit different, but we made that commitment to making sure that all of our employees knew that this was the one constant that they could depend on throughout the entirety of the pandemic. A very courageous decision, you know, because it was a little scary in the beginning as things shut down. And it was probably an easier business decision to just say, you know what, let's shut down for a couple of weeks, let our inventories flow through the system, see how things move, we'll cut costs. But it wouldn't have been a decision that was consistent with our values. And so, you know, I think the other thing I would say about courageous decisions is that when you're led by your values and you really have values, tough decisions are not difficult to make. I think just another area anecdotally, which we spend a lot of time focused on that I would very much fall into the category of courageous, is just our plight for economic equity. You know, whether that's in the business community or through education. It's something that my father, Erin Johnson, is very passionate about, and Cara and I definitely spearhead real efforts to make real impact in the communities where we operate.
Thank you. We have another question from a trustee, Helen Smith Price, who thanks you so much for your time and discussion. And her question is, you clearly are investing in training and development of the people who work with you. How do you recruit and find those talented people? Where do you go? What strategies do you use?
Well, I think one area that we've utilized is actually Spelman and Morehouse Facebook pages and other areas where we know where we are, and we know that, again, building that strong talent around us is something that, you know, we feel an obligation to do. And so one day we will have an area or some sort of platform where we can see all of our, you know where everybody is who's graduated from the AUC. But in spite of that, you know, there are spaces and places where we can post jobs and get some real-time feedback from our Spelman, Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, our whole AUC family. Excellent.
Thank you. I have another question from the audience. These questions are coming in now, so I'm trying to keep up with them. And this question comes up for every single person we have interviewed. And that is, when you walk into the room and you are the only one, how do you overcome any of the microaggressions that might happen, or the feeling of what's called, this person refers to as imposter syndrome? How do you navigate being that only one in those rooms? I'll let either one start.
Yeah, for me, first and foremost, it comes with being prepared, because if you're prepared for what you're walking into, then there's a confidence and, you know, the piece that at least you can control, I can control. So being prepared, there is no replacement for that. I think my answer to this question today will be a little bit different than it would have been 10 years ago. I think 10 years ago, it would be easier than it is today for me to show up and have a little bit of that imposter syndrome of, you know, I don't have the years of experience. I'm not in the club that is having these conversations at the table that I can't even relate to. And I would be a little bit more quiet, not timid, quiet and ready to like come back around and kick butt because I'm listening and I'm in tune with all of these things. I think I don't know if it's by virtue of the times or just the wisdom that comes with experience. Today, I am very much less okay with the microaggressions. And I think it's very important to speak up when these things happen because they're not okay. And if we leave them unaddressed, we're just keeping the door open for them to happen for the next set of women that are going to come through those doors. And so I feel like I've earned my space at the table through results. And now it's a part of what I get to give back, which is making sure that, we are addressing these things and they're not okay.
Thank you. Cara.
Yeah, I think Erin nailed it. First of all, Spelman, remember what Spelman gave you, right? Always be prepared, be a lifelong learner, be curious, make sure that you're preparing yourself for whatever meeting it is that you're going into. And then, sometimes I always just think back to those women who have come before me. And I know if imposter syndrome is there, nope, not today. I am ready. I'm prepared. I have lived this. I have done this. You're ready and you belong there. And so if you still feel that, call your cheerleader. I'll call my sister and I'll say, hey, listen, not feeling real confident right now. And she's my cheerleader. But recognize that Spelman has prepared you. Your life lessons have prepared you. You wouldn't be in that room if you didn't belong. And so, I think there is something to, Erin, what you said, which was, if you see it, call it out. We're beyond those days of being like, just sweep it under the rug.
Right.
And maybe people just aren't aware. Maybe they just aren't aware that something they're saying or something that they're doing is creating this, this energy, or is just not right.
Right.
And so I think people are in this learning space to say, oh, okay, that's what that means. And I shouldn't do that. I think this is an opportunity to teach and learn, have someone learn.
I love that image of teaching and learning because then it becomes an educational process as opposed to a confrontational one.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really good advice. So you are both clearly inspirations to a lot of people here on campus. What inspires you? Who are the people along the way that you've looked to and said, yes, that's somebody who is a model for me? Obviously, your grandparents and your father, but beyond your family.
There are so many women who in business who inspire me. I mean, outside of my grandmother, of course, my mother, my father, who's not a woman, but our very own Roz Brewer, Melody Hobson. There's so many other strong Black women. But who really inspires me? It is this next generation of leaders. So as I look at Spelmanites today, as I look at our scholars, they are young leaders and they are standing up for what they believe in. They're finding their activation voice. They are changing the world that we live in today. And I think we're going to be a much better place, because of this next generation. And maybe every generation says that, but this one is making, not just companies, but individuals really rethink the norms. And they know their value and they know their impact. So with that, I just think that this next generation is immensely inspirational to me.
Oh, that's very powerful, Cara. Thank you. Erin?
I don't know that there's much more I can add to that. I think that not just the next generation in the sense that Cara talked about it, but even just looking at my daughter who will turn 3 next week, and seeing just the boldness and passion that she has. And so I think the things that are going to come out of this group, the way that they're growing up just in the world we live in is amazing. And we want to be a place that can continue to foster that greatness as we continue on.
So now both of you have children, right? And so another one of those perennial questions that comes up from our audience is, how do you balance your family life with your business life?
I don't think there is a thing called balance. So for me, that's first and foremost. I think I give, it's about work-life fit. Some days you win at that battle, some days you don't. But also, here's one thing I don't do. I don't under-resource my life. And so when, mommy has to travel and you've got a test, well, then there's tutors who can help. If I have to travel, my husband has to travel, there's other people that I allow myself the space to be a mommy and be a business owner, and do the things that I need to do. So number one is don't under-resource your work life and don't under-resource your personal life. Outside of that, I think that it's great that our children see this work ethic that we have, and see me getting up, getting dressed and going to work every day. And then knowing, that ultimately this is something that I want them to aspire to do. During the pandemic, I think about my children, going into the lab, the culinary center with me and doing, remote school. They were in the conference rooms. And so as we were making product, they could taste things. So I think that's, you just make it work. You don't succeed at it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is just redefining what it means to have it all. That's never going to be one picture perfect moment that's consistent, and having that flexibility and being forgiving to yourself that, things are going to ebb and flow, and it's okay. It all is fine in the end. So that balance and self-care is critical to being able to have the energy to show up.
So we're almost at the end of our hour. It's hard, time flies. And I know, Cara, that you had a very important statement that you wanted to talk about giving back. And there's several questions that have come up about the Baldwin Richardson Foods scholarships. So why don't we give you this opportunity now to talk a little bit about why you and Erin are so passionate about giving back, what it means to you, to your family, to the company. Share a little bit with us about that.
Yeah, I really hope that I don't freeze through this, because this is so important to us. So hopefully it'll all work. But Dr. Campbell, we've said it many times today, right? What we do well allows us to do good. Erin and I are always focused on being the very best, so that we can create more opportunities and more opportunities. We have always said that if one person that we impact goes out and creates one job, and if that person then creates 100 jobs, and that one creates 100 more jobs, can you imagine that impact? I mean, it's immense. So Erin and I are so pleased to be able to continue our family legacy of removing barriers and ultimately creating opportunities and impact through our community. We are motivated by our grandmother's impact on Spelman. She has now 4 scholars through the Joan B. Johnson Memorial Scholarship. And of course, we are about to announce our 5th as Baldwin Richardson Foods scholars. But we feel like we can do more. And so we believe that every student who goes to Spelman should be able to graduate, and that paying for college is not a reason why she cannot finish. So Erin and I are proud to announce that at the end of our current pledge, we will commit to an additional $1 million pledge over a 5-year period.
Oh.
We love what we do. This has been so inspiring, and we are so proud to make this announcement today.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing Founders Day gift. Thank you so much, Cara, Erin, your entire family, Baldwin Richardson Foods. This is really extraordinary. What an extraordinary commitment. We really can't thank you enough. Erin, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, we are just excited about the opportunity to really put this whole notion of what we do well allows us to do good into action, and to be able to see that take reality through, creating more Spelman experiences, knowing how critical our experiences were in the formation of our life after we left campus is, something that makes us feel very rewarded, and like what we do makes a difference. So we're very excited to be able to see this legacy continue, and the sky's the limit.
Thank you. Thank you. What an amazing gift. Thank you. So we're at the end of our hour, and I'm going to quickly wrap up because this is my last courageous conversation as the president of Spelman College. And before I sign off, I want to have a very special thank you to our guests, to Erin Tolefree, to Cara Hughes, Johnson Hughes, for being with us this afternoon and being such an inspiration to everybody who is listening. And I want to give a very special thank you to Cass Joseph, who has been the producer of every single one of these courageous conversations. Cass, you've done an amazing job. Thank you to everybody who's participated. Fury Reed, Brian Simmons, Keon Dorsey, Xavier Suter. My thanks to Jasmine Burton, who keeps me text ready with questions, and the entire Spelman College communications team. Honestly, in these 7 years, I can tell you, Spelman College is a necessity. And we thrive because we have an extraordinary team who works here of staff and faculty, because we have extraordinary trustees like Cara and Erin, and because we have extraordinary students that the college is privileged to serve with Spelman College's mission. So with that, I will sign off and say, be well, be safe, and keep the faith.